Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be looking at something that I think is on a lot of people's minds these days.
Mm.
Happiness and,
Okay.
pursuing happiness and what it even means to be happy.
Right.
We've got some really interesting sources that you sent over.
Yes.
And
Very fascinating.
seems like you're really interested in this idea of flow.
Yes.
And,
You know these moments where we're just completely immersed
right.
in an activity
Yeah.
and we kind of lose track of everything else.
Totally. And it's from the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah.
And I'm probably butchering his name.
You got it.
But
Csikszentmihalyi, yeah.
he was a psychologist who really delved into this. And, his research, I think, kind of challenges us to rethink, like,
Okay.
how we conventionally view happiness.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times I think we focus on external things,
Yeah.
like money, possessions,
Right.
career status.
Right.
All those things that we're kind of told will make us happy.
Exactly. It's like if I just get that promotion,
Right.
then I'll finally be happy. Or if I could just, get that new car,
Right.
then everything will be great.
If I could just move to, both speakers start talking at the same time.
Yeah, bigger house.
A bigger house, yeah.
Exactly. And then, but
yeah.
Csikszentmihalyi really challenges that notion.
Yeah.
And suggests that it's actually about mastering our inner world
Right.
and how we experience each moment.
Yeah, it's like flipping the script.
Yeah.
Because I think, we think of happiness as something that's
Yeah.
achieved.
An outcome? Yeah.
Yeah, but this is more like a way of being.
It is. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a certain
Yeah.
state of mind
Mhm.
rather than
Right.
reaching a specific destination.
And it's interesting because, on the book, he also talks about how cultures,
Yes.
provide these frameworks for living,
Mhm.
and they can give us a sense of order and meaning.
Oh.
But they can also become, quite rigid
Yeah.
and almost like a cage in a way.
Right. Like they can limit
Yeah.
our potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like finding that balance
Yeah.
between,
Structure.
structure and freedom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though, as a society, we've achieved so much,
Right.
in terms of technology and medicine and comfort,
Mm-hmm.
the book argues that true happiness
Yeah.
isn't just automatically like bestowed upon us.
No, it's not a guarantee.
Right. It doesn't just come with all the external stuff.
Right.
And in fact, he points out how many people feel disillusioned
Mhm.
and kind of turn to these quick fixes like
No.
fad diets or, the latest self-help trend.
Right. We're always looking for that.
Right.
Quick fix, that magic bullet
Yeah.
that's going to solve all our problems.
It's easy button.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the book, makes this distinction between pleasure and enjoyment.
That's a very important distinction he
Right.
makes in the book.
So pleasure being like this fleeting
Oh, yeah.
kind of,
Like a roller coaster ride.
right.
It's exciting in the moment,
Yeah.
but then it's over.
Right. And you're kind of left wanting more.
Yeah, you're chasing that next high.
Right. Exactly.
Whereas enjoyment is something
Yeah.
that's more enduring.
Yeah.
It involves personal growth.
Right.
It involves challenge.
Right. And like a sense of accomplishment.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
learning a new skill
Right.
or mastering a challenging recipe.
Even like
Yeah,
spending time in nature,
exactly.
like really appreciating those moments.
It's about the process,
Yeah.
not just the outcome.
Right. And that's where that anecdote about the shopkeeper comes in.
Yes, the shopkeeper.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Where you had the opportunity to sell those cherub statues
Right.
for a huge profit.
Yeah, for way more than they were worth.
But he chose not to.
He chose not to.
And why is that?
Because for him,
Yeah.
the enjoyment wasn't about the money.
Right.
It was about the art of the deal.
Yes.
It was about the back and forth.
The negotiation.
Negotiation.
Yeah.
The use of his skills
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
is a great example
Yeah.
of how enjoyment is tied to the process.
Yeah. And like the use of your skills and kind of
Yeah,
challenging yourself in a way.
absolutely.
So how does all this tie back to this idea of flow that
Right.
Csikszentmihalyi is so well known for?
So flow is that state of complete absorption
Okay.
when our skills and the challenge
Yeah.
are perfectly matched.
Okay.
And in those moments, we lose track of time.
Right.
We lose track of self-consciousness.
We kind of forget about everything else.
Yeah, everything else just fades away and we become completely immersed.
Yeah. And it's
In
interesting
the activity.
because, he gives these examples in the book
Yeah.
of like a surgeon performing a complex operation or a musician lost in their music
Yeah.
or an athlete, pushing their physical limit.
Right, pushing their boundaries.
But it's not just limited to these like grand, extraordinary activities, right? Like the book suggests that flow can be experienced in everyday life.
Absolutely.
Like, walking, cooking, gardening, even those tasks that we might consider mundane.
Right, the everyday things.
Yeah.
And he argues that it's about finding ways to make those activities more engaging.
Okay.
Can we set mini goals? Can we track our progress?
Can we kind of make it into a challenge?
Exactly.
Like that factory worker, Rico, who found flow in his repetitive job.
By constantly trying to improve his efficiency.
Right. So he turned like what a lot of people might consider
a boring task.
Yeah, a boring task into this.
Into a challenge.
Yeah.
Into a game almost.
Right. And so it's almost like you're changing your perspective.
It is. It's about perspective.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of our experience.
And not being like a passive recipient.
Exactly.
Of whatever's happening to you.
Yeah. Instead of just going through the motions.
Right.
We can actually shape our experience.
Yeah. And it's not about forcing yourself to enjoy every single thing.
Of course not.
Right.
But it's more about like...
It's about recognizing that we have that power to find those moments of flow.
Even in unexpected places.
Even in the most mundane activities.
Yeah. So what are some areas in your life where you've maybe experienced this?
Yeah, think about that for a second.
Yeah, think about that for a second.
Then we'll move on.
To this next part.
To the power of attention.
The power of attention. Yeah, because this is another...
This is where things get really interesting.
Really interesting aspect of the book.
Because he argues that our attention is like a muscle.
Okay.
It's limited.
Right.
It needs to be trained.
We can't just focus on like 10 things at once.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, our minds tend to wander.
Right.
They get caught in these loops of anxieties and worries.
Yeah, it's so easy to get distracted these days.
It is. It's so easy.
With all the,
the technology and...
social media.
Social media and just the constant stimulation.
Right. And he calls this mental entropy.
Mental entropy.
Yes.
Which is basically this tendency for our minds to become scattered.
Scattered, disordered.
Yeah.
And it's not just an abstract concept.
Right.
Think about how easily you get sidetracked by social media.
Or that nagging to-do list.
Yes, exactly.
Or, just those recurring worries.
Those thoughts that keep popping up.
Yeah, those thought loops.
Exactly.
But the good news is that we're not at the mercy of this mental entropy.
We have the power
to
direct our attention.
So we can choose.
We can choose.
Where to focus our energy.
Exactly. And by doing so,
we can break free.
From those thought patterns.
From those negative thought patterns.
Right.
And reclaim control.
Over our mental landscape.
Over our minds.
Yeah.
And one of the ways he suggests we can do that is through
flow?
Cultivating those flow experiences.
Right, because when we're in flow, we're so focused that we're not even thinking about.
We're not distracted.
All those other things. So it's like we're training our attention.
It is. It's like building those mental muscles.
Yeah.
The more we practice flow, the better we become
at focusing,
at managing our attention, and choosing where to focus our energy.
So it's not just about enjoying the moment.
Right.
It's also about
building a more resilient and focused mind.
Exactly.
And that's a powerful idea.
It really is. And that's actually a great segue into the next part of our deep dive where we're going to be exploring
the role of relationships.
The role of relationships.
In cultivating a fulfilling life.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right. So, we've been talking about this idea of flow and how it relates to happiness.
Right.
But now let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about relationships.
Yeah. Relationships are huge.
Because the book really emphasizes how crucial they are to living a fulfilling life.
It's interesting because, family structures have changed so much over the years. But that need for connection seems to be...
The fundamental human need.
Yeah, like a constant...
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the book brought up this term, a negentropic family.
Negentropic family, yeah.
Which sounds very scientific.
It does, right? It's actually a very fitting term.
Yeah.
Because negentropy refers to a force that combats entropy.
Okay.
Which is that natural tendency towards disorder and chaos.
Everything kind of falling apart.
Exactly. So a negentropic family is one that actively cultivates growth.
Okay, so it's not just about preventing chaos.
Right. It's not just about maintaining order.
Yeah.
It's about actively fostering growth.
So it's like you're creating an environment where growth can thrive.
Exactly. And complexity.
Okay.
Because growth often involves complexity.
And that leads to enjoyment.
And enjoyment for all members of the family.
So it's not just about providing the basics,
right,
like food and shelter.
It's more than that.
It's about,
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels supported.
Right. And encouraged.
And encouraged to pursue their passions.
Right.
To develop their skills.
To reach their full potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book outlines some key elements of an edgentropic family.
Like what?
Well, things like clear goals. Honest communication.
Open communication.
Yes, a sense of control over one's life.
Right.
But it's also about fostering a love of learning and growth.
Not just for the outcome.
Not just for external rewards.
But for the process.
But for the inherent joy.
Right. It kind of reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with the flow state.
Absolutely.
Like almost like...
It's like applying the principles of flow to the family unit.
To the whole family dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's like creating a dynamic system where individual growth and the well-being of the whole are interconnected.
They're all intertwined.
It's like a garden.
Right.
Where each plant is nurtured.
Yeah.
But they also contribute to the overall beauty.
To the whole ecosystem.
Exactly, of the garden.
Yeah. And of course, the book also talks about
friendships.
Friendships. Yeah. Close friendships.
Because those are important too.
They are, and they also require effort.
Right. They're not just going to...
They don't just happen.
Yeah, magically appear.
Right. We have to nurture them.
And what's interesting is, he kind of presents friendship as this opportunity for growth.
Absolutely.
Not just enjoyment.
It's not just about having fun.
Right. Like, it's not just about...
And hanging out.
Yeah, having someone to, like, go to the movies with.
It's deeper than that.
Right. He's saying that friends can actually...
They can push us to become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, they can challenge us.
They can challenge us in a good way.
Right.
And they can provide us with support and honest feedback.
Right. And that's important.
It is, because sometimes we need that outside perspective.
We need someone to tell us, what we need to hear.
Call us out on our BS.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And he says that true friends act like a mirror.
Okay.
They reflect both our strengths and our weaknesses.
That's a good way to put it.
So they help us see ourselves more clearly.
Like a more complete picture.
Exactly. And that can be uncomfortable sometimes.
But it's also incredibly valuable.
Right, because it helps us grow.
It does. It helps us grow.
Yeah. So it's a good reminder.
It is.
That, relationships are active.
They're not passive.
We have to put in the work.
We have to put in the effort to nurture them.
And in doing so, we contribute to our own growth as well.
Absolutely.
And that leads us to another important theme in the book.
Facing adversity.
Facing adversity, yeah, because life isn't always...
It's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Easy, right?
No, there are going to be challenges.
There are going to be tough times.
There are going to be setbacks.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is that the book doesn't shy away from that reality.
It embraces it.
Yeah, like it doesn't pretend.
It doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
It acknowledges that hardship is a part of life.
Yeah, and it's more about like how we approach those challenges.
It's about our mindset.
Right.
And how we choose to navigate those difficult times.
So it's not about like pretending everything's okay, but it's more about like...
It's about finding meaning.
Yeah.
And even moments of enjoyment.
Really, even in the midst of hardship.
Even within the struggle.
That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Like, how is that even possible?
Well, the book highlights a few powerful strategies.
Okay, like what?
One is to pay close attention to the details of our experience.
Even when things are tough.
Even when things are difficult.
Okay.
It's like shifting our focus from the overwhelming big picture to smaller, more tangible aspects.
That we have some control over.
That we might have some control over.
Right. So it's like finding those little things we can still appreciate.
Exactly.
Even in a tough situation.
Even in the midst of hardship.
And there's that example in the book of the prisoner of war, Christopher Burney.
Christopher Burney, yes.
Who was held in solitary confinement.
Right. Imagine the mental and emotional strain.
I can't even imagine.
Of being in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
But he found moments of flow.
Right.
By meticulously observing his surroundings.
Wow.
Like the mechanics of a window.
Wow.
The texture of his blanket.
So he's like really focusing on the details.
He turned his limited environment into a space for exploration.
Wow.
And discovery.
That's incredible.
And if it's a testament to the power of the human mind.
Right. Like even when
our circumstances are incredibly restricted.
We still have a choice.
We still have a choice.
About where to focus our attention.
And where to direct our energy.
Yeah. And there was another story about
The pilot.
the pilot imprisoned in Vietnam.
Right.
Who played golf in his mind.
Every single day.
Every day.
He couldn't physically play golf.
Right.
But he found a way
to engage his mind.
Yeah. And maintain a sense of agency.
Wow. So it's almost like we're training our minds.
Yes.
To be more flexible.
More resilient. To adapt to whatever life throws our way.
Right. And that's where this concept of resilience comes in.
Exactly.
Because the book really emphasizes that.
That cultivating flow strengthens our resilience.
Right.
Because those moments of deep engagement.
Where we're pushing our limits.
Where we're pushing our boundaries. We're expanding our abilities.
Right.
We're building those mental
muscles.
Mental and emotional muscles that equip us.
For those challenges.
For future challenges.
Yeah. So it's not just about enjoying the moment.
Right.
It's about building a more resilient self.
It's about developing the mental flexibility.
Yeah.
To adapt to changing circumstances.
And all of this ties back to this idea of creating a life.
A life of flow.
A life of flow.
Yeah.
And it's not just about finding those isolated pockets of flow.
It's about weaving those principles into the very fabric of our lives.
So it's like a way of being.
It is. It's a way of approaching life. With a certain mindset.
And the book argues that a truly fulfilling life stems from
finding a unifying purpose.
Finding your purpose.
Yes, something that imbues our actions with meaning.
So it's not just about like randomly doing things. It's about having that thread.
That thread of purpose.
That kind of connects everything.
That runs through everything we do.
Right. And that purpose can come.
It can come from many sources.
From different places.
It could be a personal passion.
Right.
A commitment to helping others.
Could be spiritual.
A spiritual path.
Yeah.
A deep love for a certain activity.
Like whatever lights you up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book doesn't dictate
a
specific path.
You have to do this.
No. It's about identifying what truly motivates us.
What gets you out of bed in the morning.
Exactly what sparks that inner fire.
Yeah.
And using that as a guiding force.
So it's like finding that intersection between your skills and your interests.
And your values.
And then that kind of leads you to your purpose.
And within that alignment lies the potential.
For a truly fulfilling life.
For a life filled with flow.
Where even the ordinary moments can become these opportunities.
For growth and enjoyment.
Yeah. That's a really beautiful vision.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. But, you know, the question is, how do we actually cultivate?
How do we find that purpose?
That sense of purpose.
That's the big question.
That's the big question, and that's what we're going to be exploring.
In the final part. Of our deep dive.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about flow, attention, even negentropic families. But I keep coming back to this question of purpose. Like, how do we actually find it?
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about it in theory, but actually putting it into practice, that's a whole other challenge.
It feels almost like a catchphrase sometimes, right? Find your purpose. Easier said than done.
It really is. Especially these days. There's so much noise out there, so many distractions. It can be hard to cut through all that and figure out what truly matters to you.
So it's not like this thing that just hits you out of the blue.
No, not usually.
More like an ongoing process.
Exactly. It's about paying attention. Noticing what brings you joy, what kind of challenges make you feel alive, what activities you get lost in.
It's like you're on this treasure hunt, looking for clues within yourself.
I like that analogy.
And the book talked about pushing past your comfort zone, taking on challenges that stretch you.
Right. It's about being willing to experiment, to try new things, even if you might fail.
Speaking of failure, it was interesting how the book framed it as this essential part of growth.
It is. It's all about how you view it.
Instead of this, like, crushing defeat.
Yeah. What if you see it as feedback? Information you can learn from.
Like, okay, that didn't work. What can I adjust? What can I try differently next time?
Exactly. It's a learning process. And the book also emphasized this idea of connecting to something bigger than yourself.
A community. A cause. Something that gives your actions a broader context.
It's that sense of belonging, that feeling of being part of something meaningful. It can be incredibly powerful.
Knowing your actions have an impact.
Yes. And that can fuel your sense of purpose, that feeling that you're contributing to something larger than yourself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm thinking about these key ideas. Happiness is something you cultivate, not just wait for. Mastering your attention. embracing those growth challenges, and searching for that thread of purpose that connects everything.
And remembering that it's a journey, not a destination you just arrive at one day.
There will be those flow states, those moments of deep engagement, but there will also be those tough times, the struggles, and those are opportunities for growth too.
They are. It's all part of the process.
This book gave us a lot to think about. This vision of a life where even those everyday moments can be filled with purpose and meaning, where you find those sparks of joy in unexpected places.
A life lived with intention, with awareness, and with that constant striving for growth.
And as you continue on your own journey, I think the question to ask yourself is this: what's one small step you can take today to bring more flow into your life? What's one challenge you can embrace that might lead you to a deeper sense of purpose?
The answers are out there, and more importantly, they're within you.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.